Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Alexandra Tsvetkova, and together with my colleague Georgina Humphries, we'll go through what the TREIO project is about and some of the materials that we have prepared for you, considering your role in the judicial cooperation field and the fact that you may be engaged in the EIO exchanges on a day-to-day basis. So the agenda for today, before we delve into details regarding our tools, I would like to first present you a little bit with the European initiatives in the digitalization of justice, and to tell you more how they correlate with our project, the activities that we run, and then Georgina and myself will present you with the tools that we have developed under the project. As mentioned before, all these materials will be available to you, both in terms of recording and presentation. And we will also provide you with complimentary access to the tools that we will now present you. So let me start by quickly going through the European initiatives that I've mentioned. You might be aware there are many of this sort taking place in these recent years. And when it comes to judiciary, they are mainly regarding the electronic exchange of information in cross-border transactions and exchange of evidence. So from a very practical point of view, this whole process that I will now reach the end of in my presentation actually started back in 2010, when a number of member states initiated the development of a secure channel of communication for data and document exchange between the member states for the purposes of judicial cooperation. The project was finalized in 2016 after quite a long period of time. And following the really good results achieved in that project, additional member states opted to join this infrastructure, and the Commission itself recognized it as quite a good benefit for the judiciary and decided to adopt it later on. So what I'm speaking about is what we know today as the eCodex system. After several years of negotiations, the European Commission initiated, and later on a regulation was adopted back in 2022 that set the roles, the responsibilities, and the legal framework for operating this eCodex system, thus officially making it the European secure communication infrastructure between judicial authorities. Again, following the successful end of the original eCodex project, there were a number of spin-off projects related to different judicial cooperation instruments, but also the Commission itself recognized its value. So they decided to initiate the development of a new system, the e-evidence digital exchange system, or eEDES in short. And this system was meant as a support tool to competent authorities to help them further enhance the digitalization process and to support them in this process therein. So they decided, considering the timing back in 2016, they decided to pilot this system with the digital exchange of European investigation orders, mutual legal assistance forms, and interception of telecommunication notifications. Now, if you think back, indeed, it was the right time to start with such a pilot, considering that the EIO directive started its application in 2017. So indeed, there was the need to push for the digitalization of these exchanges. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 crisis, these processes were slowed down, both on behalf of the Commission side and on the side of the member states. So the system itself, the eEDES system that I mentioned, was officially launched in a piloting mode in May 2022. And up to date, there are only 11 member states who have joined the platform in this piloting mode. And when I say piloting, this means that the system is not used nationwide, but only in a selected number of competent authorities that are currently exchanging EIOs in a digital manner and are monitoring and exploring the further possibilities for a nationwide adoption. So this is on the technical side, what kind of systems we have. And just to sum up, we have the eCodex infrastructure being the secure communication channel for exchange of data and documents. And then we also have the eEDES system provided for the from the Commission side to the member states to actually use this secure communication channel and exchange the actual EIO forms when we speak solely in the context of the European Investigation Order. There are also a number of member states, approximately 5 or 6 member states, that are at the very final stages of adopting the system and joining the list of piloting member states. Others are still discussing what the proper strategy should be. Should they use the eEDES system as a standalone solution, or they need to integrate it with the respective national case management systems and so on. But all in all, they all have appreciated the value such a system brings and have undertaken to adopt the system within next 12 to 18 months. Together with all these changes in the technical field, we also have a simultaneous legislative process going on in the last years. And the focus there was precisely the digitalization of judicial cooperation matters. In December 2023, a new regulation was adopted, and the focus of that regulation was exactly the digitalization of judicial cooperation and access to justice in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal cases. What this new regulation brings are exactly new rules in the context of video conferencing, use of other distance communication technologies in oral hearings, but it also covers the overall communication between natural or legal persons or their representatives and the respective competent authorities. It also brings new rules regarding the recognition of documents with electronic signatures or seals, but also the payment of fees through electronic means. This new regulation is already in force and shall apply from 1st of May 2025. Now, in the context of the EIO, what is extremely important for this for the purposes of our talk today, is that this regulation also amends 8 legislative acts in judicial cooperation, and it obliges member states to go digital for 24 legislative instruments in the field of judicial cross-border cooperation within the next couple of years. So the use of the Codex system as a secure communication channel for exchange of data and documents will become mandatory for all these 24 legislative instruments covered by this regulation. At the same time, the regulation also states that member states have the opportunity to use the eEDES digital exchange system also known as reference implementation software provided by the Commission for this digital exchange, instead of a national IT system if they don't have any. However, if the member state opt for a national solution, it is up to them to decide to do so and to use that solution. 24 legislative instruments going digital in one go is quite a lot. And for that, the Commission has designed a roadmap of gradual, step-by-step adoption of these digitalization procedures. So eCodex will become mandatory to use in 2025, first with the service of documents and taking of evidence for civil and commercial matters, and then it will be gradually adopted by all the other judicial cooperation instruments. This step-by-step approach is also linked to the roadmap for development of the eEDES system itself. Hopefully by 2028, all member states will be obliged to exchange European investigation orders in a digital manner. And then by 2031, all other instruments under the umbrella of the directive will be also digitalized. Let me just quickly stop for a moment and familiarize some of the new participants with the interpretation option. Здравейте за новодошлите! Имате опция да привключите на български канал с превод на целия разговор, като намерите в долната част на екрана иконка с планета. От нея избирате българският канал и би трябвало да чувате без проблеми българският преводач. Благодаря ви. Now, what I just showed you is the overall idea behind all these measures. And here is a bit of a technical schema where you can also see how this whole communication goes on. So imagine that this here at the very right-hand angle of the screen, you have the Bulgarian competent authority you represent. It opted for using the reference implementation software for the purposes of EIO Exchanges. From a technical point of view, this national instance of the reference implementation software is connected to the eCodex communication point established on national level. The communication of all the data and documents goes through the European infrastructure established for the purpose. And on the other side, let's say we exchange EIOs with Germany, for example. On the other side, there is another communication, eCodex communication point and another instance of eEDES. Your German colleagues using the reference implementation software will see exactly the same framework and user interface that you see yourself. So this is how the eEDES system looks. You can see it here on the screen. And later on, when I show you how our simulator works, you'll be able to see and feel how the system works in reality. It's quite a user-friendly software, and it provides one and the same framework for all the judicial cooperation instruments that it will be upgraded with, meaning that the interface will remain the same. The main features regarding electronic signatures, automated translation, and so on will remain the same. The only thing that will change from one judicial cooperation instrument to another will be the forms and, of course, the different functions and notifications linked to the legal and operational requirements the respective legislative acts oblige us with. This platform is provided in all European languages, so you can easily switch to Bulgarian, or you can remain with any other language that you feel suit your needs. I'm not going to deal any further with this system because I'm going to spend time showing it to you. Now, I would like to comment a bit on our project and why we are having this webinar. So our TREIO project was designed back in 2019, 2020. And at the time, we had two main goals. First, to try and align a bit the different practices that exist among the member states on the implementation of the EIO directive. But also having in mind that there is a new system coming up at the time, there was a new system coming up at the time. We wanted to support the professionals and different competent authorities engaged in the process on how to use this new system. So we started first with designing training materials. And these training materials cover for legal and business aspect of the EIO Exchanges, but also with specific guidelines on how to use the eEDES system going from one stage of the EIO workflow to the next. And these materials also allow for national adaptations. What does that mean? So going from one stage to the next, the respective trainer could adapt the content to the specifics of, to the national specifics in terms of competencies, in terms of case law, in terms of specific peculiarities of the workflow, and so on. And we have translated all these materials, including the guidelines attached to them, in 16 different languages. Then we started doing train the trainer activities, different online training activities. When I say different, content is more or less the same, but they were implemented in different modalities in a number, quite a big number of member states. Actually, Bulgaria was the first member state where we conducted our online trainings to a limited audience of prosecutors at the time. And I saw that we have both our master trainers from Bulgaria in the meeting today, for which I thank them very much. However, going from one state to the next, we also saw that sometimes, although the trainings itself were very much appreciated by the users, sometimes that they were not that effective long-term. With the example with Bulgaria, the Supreme Judicial Council was so kind to initiate and pilot these trainings in the very beginning of our training process. But then the system itself was not launched on national level to this date. So there is this gap of almost 2 years between the training and the potential launch of the system, which creates a lot of inconveniences for the people who were trained at the time. So we have tried to find a solution that could support these different strategies in terms of training and adopting the system itself. And this is how we designed the e-learning course that Georgina is going to present you a bit later. And we have also spent quite some time to develop the so-called TREIO eEDES simulator. This is a special software that is actually an exact replica of the original eEDES system provided by the Commission, but upgraded with special training features that could help you simulate real-time communication without the participation of a partner authority or a training partner, and so on. And now we are at the very final stages of our project, and we are currently finalizing the TREIO Toolkit, which on its own is a set of sets of materials, meaning that we are combining the different tools and the different guidelines that we have created to adjust them to the needs of different audiences. And Georgina will also speak about that in light of the tools that we are presenting today. So we have a set for end-user professionals like yourself. So what type of materials and instruments you may use to enhance your day-to-day activities. We have a special set for trainers interested in training others on the EIO or the eEDES system. And we also have a special set of instruments and guidelines to competent authorities who are willing to adopt our methodology and tools for their own purposes. And now I will pass along the word to Georgina that will present to you the e-learning course that we have developed. And later on, I will let you more of how you can access it for your own training purposes. Georgina?
Thank you, Alex. As Alex has mentioned, I will go through some of the e-learning information and also in the context of the TREIO eEDES simulator. We have several aspects of the e-learning to cover. And Alex, could you move to the next slide, please?
Sorry.
Thank you very much, no worries. And there are several aims and activities of the TREIO Online Training. We have 3 key elements, one being the e-learning platform, which is used to house the TREIO training, but also to pilot and deliver the training as well. We have the online self-paced course. So this is the block of content and materials. And then we have select language versions. And to complement that, we have the TREIO eEDES simulator, which Alex has mentioned, and we'll go into more details in a little bit, but it provides a training environment for real-time hands-on experience of eEDES and the EIO workflow. We have several use cases for the TREIO training package, and I say package, but there is actually 2 packages, a full package and an eEDES package. The full package being all content, so everything on the EIO directive, EIO form and eEDES system that we feel is necessary for professionals, and also the eEDES package, which has a shorter course containing just information on the eEDES platform and how to use it in the context of the EIO workflow. We also have the idea of having a refresher training. So for participants who maybe need to refresh their memory or need to go and recall some information on specific aspects related to the EIO and the use of eEDES, or maybe have been instructed to do so, then they can use the full package to essentially select topics and perform those topics within the training. We then come to the benefits of the TREIO online training, and the most obvious being the increased awareness of the EIO directive, EIO form, and use of eEDES and its benefits for transferring digital evidences. However, we also have a user-centered and active learning approach, which allows professionals to learn differently and also allows for no instructor to be required. So the modules are entirely self-paced, meaning you can control your own study time. As we are aware, participants may not have all the time to conduct training. So, for example, you may not have 1 week worth of time to be able to train, and therefore you might have a few hours here and there, and can do so self-paced. And we have several aims and objectives, and they are quite self-explanatory, but obviously having a structured knowledge of the EIO directive and EIO procedures is important. To identify investigative measures but also to identify typical difficulties and how to overcome them in the application of the EIO. We also consider the procedures for transmission and receipt of an EIO, which are important in your daily role, and how to use the eEDES platform effectively in the EIO workflow. By the end of the training, we hope that participants will have a well-rounded knowledge of all things EIO, whether it be legal, business, workflow, or related to the eEDES system. We have the e-learning content, which I have mentioned is fully online. It is self-paced, and we have the two packages. We have the full package, where we have said it's a duration of up to 1 week, and we have the eEDES package, which we have said is a duration of 2 to 3 days. That said, it might not take you that duration to complete the training. It will be dependent on your prior experience and also the time that you have available to you. With the idea of being self-paced, you can spread out your training and time. The master copy of the training is in English with several select languages, and we have targeted multiple stakeholders. So the course is designed for all professionals, whether you are a judge, a prosecutor, or a clerk administrator, and anything in between. So essentially anyone handling EIOs and the eEDES system. We have the training overview represented here from the full course, but each package contains 5 modules, and each of those modules has different lessons. We have some take-home tasks as I've put them here, but they are essentially exercises covering different aspects of the EIO workflow, and we use the TREIO eEDES simulator as a thread through all modules, tasks, etc. In terms of content, we have a mixture and a collection of theory and practice. Obviously, there are some legal aspects to cover and aspects in terms of procedures and best practices. So some of this is textual based, but we have tried to provide visual aids where possible. We have also provided some videos, some demonstrations, and some simulations and exercises, as well as some knowledge checks and an examination. Just to go through briefly here some examples of the types of content. We have some text-based content here on the screen, but we also include some graphics, and there are even some animations in either clickable format or in terms of a short video format, as you see here. Each video has subtitling, and I will come to that a bit later on. We also have, as I mentioned, knowledge checks, which are in the format of quizzes, as you see on your screen, and the exam follows a similar format for consistency and familiarity by the professionals undertaking the training. And I mentioned that we have some demonstrations, and they are usually in video format with subtitling. As you can see here on the screen, they can be paused and slowed down for convenience, and we recommend that professionals follow along using the TREIO eEDES simulator. Here is just a short demo of a demonstration, but I won't preview all of it. But as you can see here, you can select the subtitle language. Here it is English, but in the select languages, it will be in the language version given, and we have short and long subtitles depending on what we are trying to articulate to you. Each of the videos is split into chunks, as you can see along the bottom here, and each of those chunks is an item or element that we feel is important for you to be aware of. You might find additional information in some of the elements, and you click on that little button that we just clicked on and you see the additional information. In this example, it is of choosing or selecting the competent authority, but there are other aspects highlighted within the various demonstrations. We also have some simulation. These are different to the TREIO eEDES simulator. That's a different system in itself, but these simulations are embedded in the course content as shown here. You are given a set of instructions, and here we are starting a new ITM request. So we're telling you where to click, and you click on each of the elements and walk through as if you were filling out an ITN using eEDS. We then recommend that professionals then follow along again and recall this information by doing the same activities using the TREIO eEDS simulator. As I mentioned, we have some take-home exercises or practical exercises. We have a minimum set. So there were 3 categories that I mentioned earlier, but there are actually 10 exercises in total. Each of the exercises has a description, it has a scenario, and it has a task. And 7 of the exercises are split into 2. So the first part being you are given a scenario and a task, and you're given a set of guided instructions. So we will say, please do A, B, C, D, E. And then for the second part, as you see here, we will give you a scenario, we will give you a task, but we will not provide you with the guided instructions. In that instance, you're expected to log into the TREIO eEDS simulator and perform the same actions as you did in the first task. So you use the eEDS simulator for both tasks, but one is guided and one is not. We have designed the eLearning for all stakeholders, so we've considered all end users. We will provide access to both packages, so the full package and the eEDS package. The quizzes and the examination are built in to the training, so it's one module, you do everything within. And the exercises, while they are embedded in the content, will be provided separately so that you can practice those using the TREIO eEDS simulator separately. We have considered trainers within the e-learning approach. While I said it was no instructor required, if competent authorities wish to include a trainer, then they can do so, as the trainer will have mapping of the content and also the solutions to self-evaluation methods. We have also considered the competent authorities who require more access if they are to embed the e-learning into their learning management system. And we will provide the developer files, including all images, graphics, text, videos, etc., and a mapping of the content in the developer manual as well as the developer files. And now I will hand back to Alex, who will show you a little bit about the TREIO eEDS simulator.
So from my side, I think this is maybe the most interesting part of today's session. Before we go further with how the system feels and looks, I just want to briefly give you a bit of a context why we decided to opt for such a solution. So in a real training environment, you would usually have access details to the system that you are trained on together with all your peers or your colleagues within the same unit. And then you'll be able to go online, to go into the system and train with the different options and functionalities. And every time when some specific type of communication is required, you can do so by asking your colleague or your training partner, please help me with this or that part. Now, when you are going through e-learning, you are alone there and you go through all the content and everything on your own at your free time or whenever you're interested. And it will be quite schizophrenic if you try to jump from one profile to another just to simulate this type of communication that I was speaking about. So what we have tried to do here is to replace your training buddy with the TREIO autoresponder. So in all these exercises that Georgina mentioned and that I'm going to speak about later on more, you will see how at every step along the way through those scenarios, at every action you undertake, there is the corresponding response on behalf of the system in a completely automated way. So this is the purpose of the TREIO autoresponder, and this is actually the functionality that we have put on top of the original eEDES system. This was done, of course, with the approval of the Commission. We used their licenses for the original system, and this is why we are allowed to provide as close to the real life environment as possible. So, as I said, we use a replica of the original system, upgrading it with this particular tool. Now I'm going to show you what I mean by as close to real-time and real-life experience as possible. For the purposes of our project, we have installed a real eCodex communication point that is linked to the real eCodex environment. On one side of the communication, we have our TREIO eEDES simulator. So every time when one of our participants using the simulator would like to issue a request or communicate over such EIO MLA requests, for example, they are sending all this information through that eCodex contact point, through the original eCodex communication channel. But instead of this information to go to a real competent authority, it goes to the TREIO autoresponder, and then the autoresponder provides you with feedback on behalf of an imaginary member state or imaginary competent authority. All this is explained in the e-learning course, and the e-learning course itself guides you through all these steps, contextualizing the use of the system with regards to different business or legal aspects of the EIO exchanges. And you can simulate this type of key aspects of the EIO workflow through 10 different exercises, as Georgina already mentioned. So 7 of these exercises covered for actions performed by the issuing state, and 3 of these exercises cover for actions performed by the executing state. And you can judge from the titles that all these exercises are meant to lead you through, relying on the learning by doing approach, through all the EIO key points, also the key points of the EIO workflow. Each of these scenarios follows the so-called if and then behavior. So, as I mentioned before, there are a number of steps the participant in the process should perform. And every time when a certain step is performed, the TREIO autoresponder reacts with an appropriate feedback, just like a potential competent authority will do in real life. In some cases, you may find that these exercises are a bit misleading, feeding you with wrong information. First, this is done on purpose. It is explicitly said so after the end of the exercise, and it is meant to show you how different mistakes or problems in the process could actually lead to a number of actions that you may or may not take in order to speed up the communication or made up for your mistake. Every time when you, in one of these scenarios where you would like to issue an EIO, this means that you go into the TREIO eEDES simulator and you act assuming the role of the issuing state. And at that point, you will see it on the screen, and I will show you in a bit what I mean, that you are using the eEDES simulator for the issuing purpose. And then the TREIO autoresponder will play the role of the executing state in the process. So instead of sending the EIO to the Netherlands, for example, you select the TREIO autoresponder out of the list of executing states at the very bottom of that list. Vice versa, if you want to respond to an EIO, you go into the TREIO eEDES simulator, you assume the role of the executing state, but in order to respond to an EIO, you must first receive it. So you can ask the TREIO autoresponder to send you an EIO so that you can perform the follow-up actions depending on the scenario that you are in, and actually exercise how to reply to such requests. And now I'm going to show you the actual system. So as I already told you, you are to receive complimentary access to the eEDES simulator. So we also send you not only the access details, but some instructions on how to access the tool. And you can access it by visiting the link that you can see on the screen. And then you put in the credentials that we are going to send you. Oh, sorry. So all you need is a browser. You open the link that I showed you. You enter the credentials that will be sent to you, and then you sign in to the system. And this is how the system looks. So, as I said, it is an exact replica of the real eEDES system. And the only way to recognize that it is not the real system is that you will see this little icon here, which indicates this is the TREIO eEDES simulator. Then you can see your user credentials. And if you go to your profile, you will see all the rights that you have. In a real-time situation, your access rights will be assigned to you depending on your competencies by your competent authority. But for the training purposes, we have given all the profiles in the system full rights, meaning that you can author an EIO, you can sign it, you can review it, you can send it, and so every possible action that you may perform in the system. I already mentioned that the system is delivered in all national languages. So from this little icon here at the very right top corner, you can change into Bulgarian, for example. And let's proceed now in Bulgarian. If you want to initiate a new request, you go to this new request button, and then you opt for the request that you're interested in. Let's choose European Investigation Order 1. And we, for the purposes of this demonstration, will just put some dummy title. But in real life, you'll be asked to put the subject of your request as, and it's, of course, much better to try and explain your request as best as possible in the very title itself, so that the other side could easily understand what this request is about. And when you click on continue, we are actually in a situation where we are creating a new EIO and we are filling in a new EIO. At the very beginning, you see this little overview screen, which is like the summary of your EIO request. So you see here that you're using the eEDES simulator. There is no executing site assigned yet, because you are to choose it while filling in Annex A. However, when you progress from one EIO state, exchange state to the next, the status of your EIO case will change and it will appear here. And I will give you another example with an already received EIO where some actions are taken so that you can better understand what I mean. Further on, you can see all the users assigned to this case and what are their roles within your competent authority. Once you progress with the EIO, we'll see all the attached documents here at this stage for easy review. And when you proceed further with the EIO case, you also see all the deadlines that apply to it. There's also this special feature here among other support tools. This is an actual timeline of everything that happens with your request, or in general with the communication related to this request. So every single notification that comes from the eEDES system or from the eCodex system will appear here. This means that every time when you receive some new development on your case, when you receive some form of a message, every time when you create a document in the system, it will appear here in a chronological order. So every time, in just a glance, you can see everything that happened to your EIO request. What's more important, you will know immediately whether the receiving side have received your message. Meaning that, for example, if there is any technical problem on communication level, you also be able to see it here and understand immediately that for some reason your message is not received. This is so because this section here on the timeline gives you notification coming from both the eCodex system and the eEDES system. And for the purposes of our simulator, it also notifies you for every action undertaken by the simulator. And then the most important part, you go to Annex A. And here you can see Annex A exactly as it is as per directive. So it's a replica of the paper form, but with one important difference. So here in the electronic version, some of the fields have been made mandatory. This is so that the one who fills in the EIO should not leave out any important information or forget to fill in that information, like sometimes happen with a paper form. And when you go from one section to the next, different options appears dynamically depending on the modalities that you have created or selected at the previous stage. The good part is that you can always try and validate your Annex A by clicking on this validation check button. And then the system shows you every single instance when there is a mandatory field that is not yet filled in. So, for example, if we go to Annex F, then you will see that there are two spaces here with these little red stars, which indicates the mandatory part. And then you know that this is like the minimum amount of information that you need to put into the form in order to proceed. Another important feature here is the workflow button. However, I don't, now I see it, but it's a bit shrinked for you. Let me switch to English, because then I can see it more clearly and then it's more visible to you as well. So at the very right part here, you have the so-called workflow button. And the purpose of this workflow button is to give you all the actions that you can perform at a single stage. Considering we are at the very first step of filling in the Annex A. The only thing that you can do is to complete it. But when you reach a different stage, there will be another set of actions that you can perform through this button. Let me now go to one received requests, and I can show you more easily what I mean. Okay, this is a good example. So this is an EIO that have been already received in our system, and certain actions have already been performed. You can see that this EIO was requested by the user from the TREIO autoresponder, and the TREIO autoresponder sent that EIO to us. And we are now acting on the executing side via the TREIO eEDES simulator. You will immediately see that the status of the EIO case has changed. And I know just with one glimpse that this is an EIO in which we have already replied with Annex B, because then Annex B is active. If we were to have a request for additional information, this little icon here will change. And then the icons change when you make a decision, when you reach an outcome, when you close the case, and so on and so on. And again, considering we are here in the overview section, you can see all the other aspects that I've mentioned. You can see all the documents here, and then all the deadlines. There is a request from participants to switch to Bulgarian, I believe. So let me find it, and you'll see immediately what I mean. So you can easily switch between languages. And again, we are in the overview section. You can see which is the issuing state. You can see which is the executing state. You can see the status of the case. And you can see all the documents attached to both Annex A, Annex B, and if there are any other documents along the way, you also see them here. And here you see all the deadlines that apply to the specific EIO case. Again, we go back to the top. If we go here to the timeline part that I showed you before, you will see how this case develops. So here is an indication that the EIO has been received. Then it also indicates the documents received along with it. And there is another notification confirming the receipt of the EIO, meaning the issuing of Annex B on our side. And you can see here the chronological order and how much time it took from our side to respond to this. You can go through the original Annex A that was sent to you. You can go as a reminder through Annex B if it's a long-standing case. And there are a number of different small pieces of supporting tools that could be helpful to you. Again, if you go at this stage to the workflow here, you see it as работен процес. And then if you go here, you see the different type of actions that you have performed, that you can perform for this particular stage. And you see how they differ going from one stage to the next. If we go back here to the dashboard, you go here and you are in a position, let me do this, okay. You are in a position to see all the different requests that you have received. And for every request, you see the respective subject, you see which is the state, the member state that submitted the request, you see the type of request that you have received, but you also see the status. And you can ask different colleagues, if you have the rights to do so, You can ask different colleagues to join and support the case. There are also a number of filters and search options that help you find the EIO or the MLA or the ITN that you are looking for. Here there is a very helpful support tool as well. You can see all the deadlines that are linked to the EIOs that you have received. Let me just enlarge it a bit. So you can see all these deadlines and what is the expected response from your side. I'm not going to delve any further. This is not an EIO training. It's just an option to show you what the different tools offer. One important note on automated translation. So this is a special function of the system that allows you to auto-translate the full Annex A or Annex B when you complete it, for example, or it allows you to go to a specific field and translate only that field if you don't understand something. However, this automated translation is not a substitution for the official translation of the documents that you need to provide under the directive. And it does not substitute the fact that each of the member states have announced for the languages they accept following the rules of the directive. So this auto-translation is just for your own purposes in case of an emergency, in case of an operational need to act a bit faster. So instead of waiting for the receiving of the official translation, you may just check, or going through all the documents you may just check quickly what this or that field means, and you can decide how to proceed further with this request. I'm going back to my presentation just to complete my part on how you can access all these tools. As already mentioned, you will receive access to both the e-learning course and the TREIO simulator, and this will happen by the end of the week. And we will also provide you with all the relevant guidelines, user manuals, exercises as well, and everything. On top of that, on the TREIO webpage, you can find a special section called Toolkit section. And there, in the next 10 to 15 days, we are going to upload all the training materials, including in the different language versions. Bulgarian is one of those language versions that I have been talking about, along with all the guidelines and everything that we have produced in the time frame of the project. So this way you have access to all the materials. One, we have completed the uploading option because there are quite a lot of materials and it takes time. Then you'll be able, we'll send you a notification over email, and then you'll be able to go and cherry pick on the materials that you're most interested in. You can forward this presentation or the recording of this session to any colleague of yours that you think might be interested in our products and our tools. And they can also sign up for individual access by using the link you see on the screen. And access details will follow shortly. One important note. In the very beginning, when you send your access details, there will be one and the same for both the e-learning course and the eEDES simulator. Once you enter the e-learning course, you'll be asked to change your password. And there will be a new password you're going to use for the purposes of the e-learning. However, the original password that we sent you will remain the same for the purposes of the eEDES simulator and the autoresponder. So this is a silly note, but it is important to be made, considering sometimes participants get confused. So this is all from our side. And now it's time for your questions or comments or anything that you'd like to ask us with regards to what we have just said. We have received quite a number of comments in the registration forms for this event. And we have tried to incorporate all those related to the training materials or related to the different modalities of the tools that we provide in the presentation today. Some other comments coming from other sessions could also be useful to you. So I'm going to share some feedback on those to you now, and then you'll be free to comment on your own. So, for example, one participant in the other sessions asked us about the best approach to select a competent authority within the system. And the system, as of now, forwards you to the EGN Atlas. So you proceed to the website maintained by EGN, and you are to choose the competent authority exactly like you do it now. There is a development in progress to be provided by the Commission, and they have promised to integrate the information from the EGN Atlas into the system directly. But this is a functionality yet to come. One question in the chat concerns the language in which the EIO request should be sent. Georgina, apologies, I will switch to Bulgarian just to speed up the comment process. Относно езика, на който трябва да се изпращат заявките, това си се определя от страната, която получава заявката. Знаете, че по директива всяка една държава обявява езиците, на които приема европейски заповеди за разследване. Така че ако държавата е посочила, например, английски и френски, това са езиците, на които те ще продължат да получават заявките и в контекста на системата. В случай, че нямате възможност веднага да уредите такъв превод, е възможно, например, да изготвите заповедта на български, да направите автоматичен превод в рамките на системата и да изпратите за бързина тази информация до отсрещната страна. Но истината е, че отсрещната страна няма да започне никакви мерки, докато не получи официалния превод. Това ще бъде изцяло за тяхна информация, че такъв превод ще следва и че такава заявка ще следва. Но ситуацията с езиците не се променя в зависимост от това какви са възможностите на самата система. В момента тази информация относно езиците не се вижда директно в системата. Както ви казах, връзката с информационните блокове, които предоставя EGN, е изцяло външна. Но се планира такава интеграция с Атласа, за да може тази информация, както от гледна точка на изискванията на държавите, така от гледна точка на компетентните институции, да е видима и в самата система. Един друг въпрос, който ни беше задаван сравнително често от предходните сесии, засягаше участието на Евроджъст. Към момента техните представители нямат собствени профили в системата и съответно нямат права да оперират в хода на работа с европейските заповеди за разследване. Но в момента Европейската комисия работи по разработването на такива профили, Така че в бъдеще ще има възможност Eurojust също да се присъедини към платформата и да подпомага директно през самата платформа професионалистите, които работят в областта. Друг чест въпрос, който ни задаваха до сега, беше във връзка с документите, които могат да бъдат прикачени към една европейска заповед за разследване в системата. Системата допуска покачването на документи, на снимки, но също така на аудио и на видео файлове, като ограничението в размера проистича от самата инфраструктура на eCodex, която позволява обмяна на не повече от 2 гигабайта информация с едно комуникационно съобщение. Така че всъщност самата eEDES система е ограничена до 500 мегабайта на индивидуален файл и съответно до 2 гигабайта на цялостно съобщение. В момента се работи върху различни идеи как може да се увеличи този обем на комуникацията, но няма стабилно решение. Така че от тази гледна точка не мога да обещая, че скоро ще има. Имаме още един въпрос от участник. Има ли възможност да се принтира от системата, за да се изпрати за превод, или трябва да се изготви отделно формуляра за нуждите на превода? В този смисъл удачно ли е да се изготви на български език и превода да се прикачи в файл? Напълно са възможни и двете функции. Всъщност в мига, в който изготвите европейската, т.е. да кажем приложение А, когато го изготвите в системата, вие можете да го свалите под формата на PDF. Мисля, че вече въведоха и експорт в Word формат и след това да го дадете за превод. Съответно, да прикачите превода към самото искане, преди да го изпратите. Така че имате възможност преди самото изпращане да прикачите тези документи и те да си тръгнат по каналния ред. Системата изисква да се ползва електронен подпис. Това е следващия въпрос от чата. За целите на удостоверяване кой подписва заповедта и кой я изпраща. Това се прави към момента, тъй като все още има предвид това, че и самият регламент беше приет съвсем наскоро относно дигитализационните мерки. По това подписване се правеше последния начин. В мига, в който сте подготвили приложението, вие го сваляте в PDF, подписвате го локално с вашия електронен подпис и след това го качвате в подписан вид в системата, като системата автоматично проверява дали има такъв електронен подпис прикрепен към файла. Работи се този процес на подписване да става автоматично в самата система, като това е една от следващите стъпки, които ще бъдат имплементирани от страна на комисията. В интерес на истината, в държавите, при които имаме интеграция между eEDES и съответната система за управление на дела на национално ниво, там вече има възможност да се работи с инструментите за подписване, които са осигурени на национално ниво и в този смисъл да се подписва директно в самата система, но това са все още технически параметри, които не са уеднаквени за абсолютно всички държави, предвид различните разбирания за начина, по който трябва да се случат тези неща. Сега вече, като се работи и по линия на самия регламент, ще се премине към уеднаквяване и в тази част. Аз се опитах да обхвана, разбира се, с тези идеи и от други участници, от регистрационните форми, най-често срещаните въпроси, които ни се задават. Но отново, ако се сещате нещо друго или което не е станало ясно от нашето представяне, не се колебайте да го зададете като въпрос. Също така, дори след края на днешната среща, ние ви обещахме обратна връзка по няколко аспекта, така че дори ви самите да имате някакви допълнителни въпроси, да се присетите нещо друго във връзка с ползването на инструментите, винаги може да ни пишете по имейл и ние се стараем да отговаряме максимално бързо. Може би нещо, което пропуснах да изкоментирам. Надявам се си давате сметка, че предоставяйки ви достъп до този тренировъчен инструмент, който макар и много близък до самата система, разбира се, той не е самата система. Така че молбата ми е да се въздържате от публикуването на информация, която има чувствителен или конфиденциален характер в опита си да симулирате истински случай, по който работите. Просто да имате в предвид, че все пак това е инструмент, който не е оторизиран на национално ниво в този смисъл. Ако се сещате за някакви други въпроси, коментари, нещо, което ви е направило впечатление, което положително или отрицателно. Добре. Ами не виждам повече въпроси в чата, не виждам и желаящи да коментират. Да, относно записа от срещата, до края на седмицата ще споделим с всички вас запис от срещата. Тя ще бъде или през самия Zoom ще го споделим, или ще бъде качена в YouTube, в зависимост от това чисто времеви какви са ни възможностите до края на седмицата. Но ще намерим начин по възможно най-бързия канал да ви предоставим както презентацията, така и записа от самата среща и те ще си останат на ваше разположение. По същия начин, както споменах и преди, когато са ни готови абсолютно всички материали на сайта, разпределени по секции, ще пишем отново до всички, за да знаете къде може да ги намерите. Имаме една молба относно, сега не мога да цитирам съдилищата един по един, но имаше няколко човека, които се бяха регистрирали с един и същ общ имейл на съда, за да можем да ви предоставим персонален достъп до инструментите. Ще се радваме да ни пишете до office@treio.eu, за да може да ви предоставим този персонален достъп. В противен случай няма как до общ имейл на съда или на прокуратурата да изпратим такъв достъп. Така че просто да го имате в предвид. Ние ще адресираме този проблем по съответните имейли, за които сме забелязали това нещо, но все пак исках да го кажа и в контекста на това, кога и как може да получите материалите, които сме ви обещали. Не виждам други коментари или някой да е вдигнал ръка. Така че ако няма повече въпроси, можем да приключим срещата за днес. Отново казвам, оставаме на разположение по имейл. Преди или след като получите достъп до материалите, независимо от естеството на вашите въпроси. Благодаря ви, че се включихте в днешната сесия. Благодаря ви, че останахте до края, въпреки това отчасти недоразумение, което се получи с времевата разлика спрямо обявената и българската времева зона. Така че наистина се надявам това, което сте чули днес, да ви е заинтригувало, да ви е направило впечатление и в действителност да се възползвате от инструментите, до които ще ви дадем достъп. и най-вече да ги намерите за уместни в хода на вашите професионални задължения. Благодаря ви още веднъж за участието ви днес и отново оставаме на разположение при нужда.